Right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Facebook Live from Alzheimer's Orange County. My name is Melissa Klabe. I'm the Director of Education here at ALS OC, and I'm joined by Dr. Miriam Galindo. Hey, Dr. Galindo.
Good morning, Melissa. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. So we do these monthly Facebook Lives most Tuesdays, unless we are having another educational event, which we do on the second Tuesday of the month. We have a big webinar that you're all invited to as well. But today, Dr. Galindo and I are going to be talking about changes in behavior expressions, or as I sometimes like to call it, expressions of distress in our loved ones with dementia as their disease progresses. We're going to talk a little bit about why they happen, what to do, how to be proactive, and also what to do if you're kind of in the middle of more of a a situation that's escalating and you want to kind of de-escalate it and get back to a positive place. So we're going to our wonderful education sponsor for this month, Right at Home. They're a leader in the in-home senior care industry. They have trained caregivers and provide quality in-home care for seniors and disabled adults who need some assistance to maintain their independence. And of course, they have customized care plans and caregiver matching, and they've been a longtime wonderful sponsor of ours. If you'd like more information, please visit rightathome.net, and we couldn't do this without them. All right, so let's dive in here. First, I want to kind of talk about this slide a little bit, and I call this the cycle of distress. And I'm sure as caregivers out there, you're familiar with some version of this taking place at times. You can start really anywhere on the cycle, but we can start at the top here where, something happens, a situation, our loved one becomes distressed, right? And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And then what happens, right? A lot of times, because we're human, that makes us stressed out, right? And it kind of carries over, and then we react as humans do to a stressful situation, and sometimes we add our own stress on. And then we tend to kind of respond with frustration, with love, but with frustration. And, that just kind of ends up perpetuating this cycle of distress. Our loved one senses our distress, they become more distressed, and then on we go. And sometimes it's really, really hard to break out of this cycle. And so many things can set it off. Sometimes it feels like nothing in particular, right? Dr. Galindo, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Right. And I'm going to emphasize the word distress because there is a tendency, especially among professionals, to call it combativeness or aggression or violence. And one thing that we have to remember is not only that this cycle is perpetuated by our own reactions, and we're going to talk about the brain in just a bit so that we can understand what's behind those reactions, but we also need to understand that the choice of words certainly can dictate how we choose to respond. So if we're calling it combativeness or we're calling it violence, then our reaction is going to be one of becoming increasingly more aggressive or defensive or forceful, which inadvertently is going to reinforce exactly what we don't want, which is more distress. The key to understanding what this cycle is all about, and it's certainly helped me in both my professional life as well as my private experience dealing with my own dad, is remember that at the core of a lot of what you see as distress, or what the professionals sometimes call combativeness, is a lot of fear. And if you can empathize with that underneath all that is fear and more fear, then your response becomes more of an empathic response rather than a defensive response or an expression of exasperation. So let's look at the next slide, because I think that helps all of us understand what's under this distress. The first thing to remember is that dementia is not intentional. It's not intended to, the behaviors that are exhibited are not intended to get under your skin or give you a hard time or make your day horrible. It's not intentional. They're doing the best they can with what they've got. And if we understand that dementia is a progressive change in the brain or brain damage over time, we can be more empathic to what we're seeing. And so we're just going to do a quick primer on the brain. Those of you who are watching this might be your first time seeing this picture. Those of you who've been in our family a long time have seen this picture, but you might be like me. The more I repeat things, the more in my own brain it makes sense. So we're going to go over it. If you look at the front of the brain, the area that's right over the person's face, the facial features, the nose and the eyes, that is the part of the brain that is responsible for organization, executive functioning, balancing a checkbook, directionality, knowing when to go right and left, and being able to visualize kind of a map in one's own head of where they're headed. And also to control impulses. So the impulse to yell, the impulse to push, all of that is regulated by that area of the brain, the frontal lobe of the brain. If we move toward the middle of this drawing, we see a couple of structures here. At the top is this continuation, at the top of the head there, of this lumpy matter is the continuation of what's called the gray matter. And depending on where you are in the brain, this gray matter, it is responsible for a variety of things. And you can see an arrow pointing to sensory perception, meaning it picks up on what the senses are, it interprets what the senses are picking up. So for example, incoming stimuli coming through your visual area, your eyes, is interpreted by the brain into images and sights. And then your brain is able to say, I know what that is, right? And make sense of it. Incoming stimuli coming into your ears is interpreted by the brain. Incoming stimuli coming into your tactile senses, your ability to touch something and figure it out, that's all interpreted by the brain. And to test this, by the way, I'm going to tell you just one little test that can correlate with your understanding of tactile senses. Put some items in a bag, like a pillowcase, and just touch them without seeing them. And your fingertips should be able to give you enough data, send it to your brain, and your brain would be able to say, that feels like a pencil, or that feels like a cell phone. If you have a degenerative brain disease like dementia, you can put your hand in that pillow slip and you have no idea what it is you're touching because your brain's not able to make sense of it. So all the senses are interpreted by this gray matter. And then as we go to the back of the brain, you can see there's a pointer swallowing an organ function. What it's pointing to is kind of not exactly the area it should. It should point, that little line should extend all the way to the brain stem, which is responsible for swallowing an organ function. Where it is pointed is what's called the cerebellum. And that part of the brain, that little cauliflower part that you can see at the very base of the brain, is responsible for coordination and balance. So when you see your loved ones having trouble standing up, or you say, okay, now it's time to get in your chair, and they're having trouble coordinating their feet, that's what's going on. That part of the brain is affected now by dementia. In the center of this whole brain, what looks like kind of a nice little design in that donut center, that's the emotional centers. And you can see a short-term memory with a little pointer to right under those emotional centers. So this is critical for us to know. Those emotional centers which respond instinctively to stress, like fear, and it looks like distressful behavior, keep in mind that that's very close to the memory centers. So the more we respond with stress, the more our loved ones get more stressed. And guess what? It gets reinforced in their brains. Yes, their memory is affected by dementia, but these emotional memories stick. And they don't have the benefit of this gray matter to interpret what's going on. So a person with dementia can't necessarily tell their emotional centers, now don't be upset, that's your daughter. All it feels is upset, and then that kind of gets stuck in their brains. And it's going to repeat itself the next day and the next day, the next day. So it behooves us as caregivers to know the more stressed we get, the more stress they're going to get, and then it's going to kind of imprint itself and stick. And the behavior we're trying to accomplish is going to be even harder tomorrow because now it's stuck. The key is figure out how you're going to keep yourself calm and cheerful, because that emotional response will also have a contagion effect to your loved one, and they're going to feel less stressed, and they won't necessarily know why, and that's okay, but that will imprint, and you're going to see behaviors improve because what they're doing is associating a positive thing with that neurological memory. So how do we caregivers get to the point where we can control our own stress response in response to their distress? That is like the biggest challenge because we're human.
Yeah.
And a lot of times our distress comes from helplessness. We don't know what to do. And this is the 50,000th time this has happened. And we're tired and exhausted and like, over it. And so we need kind of a model for how to proceed. And again, those who've been in our family for quite a bit know this model that we're going to introduce. And it's called the IDEA model, based on an acronym IDEA. And this really just slows down our thinking. Certainly you do this on an automatic basis, but if you slow down your thinking, you're able to kind of attack the problem without getting too emotional yourself and overwhelmed. So the first part of the acronym is identify the behavior expression. Do it as objectively as possible. Don't put any meaning on it or, judgment or assumptions as to why it's happening. The second part is the E in IDEA, and that stands for explore. And you're going to explore the potential causes. And typically with distress, it's going to be an unmet need. And if you can't remember that, just remember, okay, they told me fear. There's always some fear under there. And then the third part of that acronym is adjust. Adjust your approach or the environment. You notice I didn't put in there adjust your loved one because that's not possible. And in fact, if you think about it, you can't adjust anybody. You may have tried in your lifetime, but it's a mirage. You can't change anybody. It's like the disappointing reality of human nature. They can change themselves. We can't change them. And with somebody with dementia, the thing to keep in mind is they're doing the best they can with the brain they have. They're working with a brain that's incurring damage over time. And so we're just trying to figure out a creative way to work with what they've got.
Perfect. So I can walk us through this scenario here, and then we can kind of talk about what might be happening and where it might have gone off the rails. So I took this example from a UCLA caregiver video. I can put the link in the comments. They have many caregiver videos. You can just Google UCLA caregiver videos and it'll come right up. We've shared some of them in the past, like trouble with medications and bathing and things like that. And I like this one because I think it encompasses a lot of what we experience, which is just kind of anxiety and aggression kind of end up bubbling to this, kind of crisis point. So in this situation, I think they call this video anxiety or aggression or something like that. So basically this, if you could see this picture, this woman with dementia, she's kind of trying to get dressed and her daughter comes in. And her daughter is clearly kind of in a rush from the beginning. They need to go to a doctor's appointment. So, not the greatest place to start being in a rush. But she's nice enough, she's not like coming in guns blazing, being mean or anything, but it's clear that she's kind of wanting to rush her mom. And then she walks in and sees her mom with lots and lots of layers that she's putting on. And it's an LA 80-degree winter day like we had yesterday, right? So out of the blue. So her daughter comes in and kind of says, "Hey, mom, we got to go to the doctor's office. Whoa, what are you wearing? We need to get you appropriate clothes. We need to get you dressed." And the mom kind of responds something like, we can kind of predict what she's going to say. I can do it myself. I don't need your help. And so, the daughter kind of tries to reason with her. kind of like, hey, it's hot outside, this, you're going to be sweltering hot, we need to get this off you and get you into a t-shirt because we really got to go, it's time to go. And they're just kind of going back and forth like this, and then finally it kind of reaches this tipping point where the mother just says, leave me alone, I can do it. And she's clearly just at her max frustration, and she says, get out, to her daughter, and the daughter says, fine, I don't need this, and kind of storms out and slams the door. And like you said, Dr. Galindo, this has probably happened many, many times. This is likely a cycle they've been in before, and so it's kind of familiar to both of them. And so, how do we break out of that cycle? What do we do? For those out there, think about what you see happening in this situation, kind of come up with some ideas, what may be causing this behavior, or is it really kind of an expected response that we would expect from the mom, who has trouble understanding what's going on, and then kind of seeing her daughter come in, kind of starting to rush her and maybe take away a little bit of her choice. So, and then so just thinking through all these things and how we would respond. So, Dr. Galindo, do you kind of want to walk us through how we would use the idea model in this situation?
I would love to, because
right.
Listen, I remember, and I've had so many experiences with this, again, professionally, but also personally. My dad was the master of layering. And so in addition to going through some of these steps, I'm going to add some examples from my own experience with my dad, things he taught me, that worked. So listen, the overarching goal is we want to, we had that episode where the daughter left the room and said, forget this, I don't need this. Mom is upset. Meanwhile, they've got a doctor appointment to go to, and they're going to miss it. So it becomes a problem because it now has some consequences. It had an effect. This is not something that you can simply say, this battle is not worth fighting. Who cares? They had a doctor appointment to go to, and now they're going to wait a couple more weeks to schedule the other one, right? So it becomes a problem, and that's important. Make sure that what you're upset about is actually something that's, worth tackling. So in this case, we want to identify the behavior, and we're going to do it without judgment. So even in this response, it says mother does not want help from the daughter. Not necessarily. We're concluding, if we place judgment on it, that she doesn't want help, but truly the behavior is she's layering her clothes, and we're in a rush, and this has happened 50,000 times, and I'm tired of it. That's the behavior. So she's layering clothes. What do I do? So once we identify what the behavior is, we then go to the next step, which is explore what might be causing the behavior. Because once we figure out what the problem is, the solution just rises to the top, and we're able to kind of answer our own question. So just look at everything under the sun that could be causing the layering of clothes that then led to being late, that then led to the frustration. One possibility, feeling out of control, feeling talked down. Well, and we can see that the lack of control comes when daughter comes in and tries to counter what's going on. Take off the clothes, it's 80 degrees, and then there's this power struggle, right? So that's good. Believing you are capable of dressing your own. Well, that answer came right out of mom's mouth. I'll do it myself. Get out. So you're essentially, as the daughter, you're infantilizing this adult who has been quite capable of dressing herself. So you've missed the mark then as the caregiver by trying to explain something that's obvious to this person that you love. The third possibility is the frustration with the task itself. Clearly, everybody was frustrated. And then the fourth possibility is what the daughter was saying and her approach, and even rushing mom. Definitely. Anytime you find yourself trying to hurry your loved one along, guarantee there's going to be a fight. I'm going to add another thing to this list that my own father taught me in his moderately severe stage of dementia. And that was, when I looked at his closet, it was like Neiman Marcus. It was beautiful. There were beautiful colors. There were things hanging on hangers, and they were just screaming to be tried on.
Mm,
So, one of the things that I thought to do, and it actually worked, is minimize the amount of choices in the closet and put those other choices someplace else
mhm,
so that the temptation to layer is gone. If there's just one shirt and one pair of pants and one sweatshirt in there, there isn't going to be any layering, you
yeah.
know? Now, yes, there are going to be questions about where did that other thing go? And that's going to, now we're going to move on to a different application of the idea model. But for now, we're in a rush. And so we're going to take away the very thing that is causing the stress to begin with. So that leads me to the third step. When you decide what are all these problems, then you can figure out now what can I adjust? And remember, you can't adjust your loved one, you can only adjust you and you can adjust the environment. So when I talked about the closet and the choices and all these beautiful things on hangers, beautiful to my dad, by the way, because I think all of you would say, wow, that's like khaki and more khaki. But to him, it was beautiful. So that's an example of the environment. What do you change in the environment? And the second thing would be, what do I change about me, my timing, being up against the clock, trying to rush my mom, trying to use words like it's 80 degrees and try to fight this battle logically. Those are the things you can adjust. So here we've got a list. Approaching calmly and patiently. That's a solution because we've potentially determined that one of the problems is daughter comes in a rush with all these words coming at mom, and it's coming across as aggressive and overwhelming. So be calm, use a few words, and allow yourself plenty of time so you're not rushing as well. Number two, encourage mom to do as much for herself as possible. Golden rule. And this is going to apply to any behavior we talk about in the future, even to the point of later stages of dementia. It's very important to respect and encourage the behaviors that remain and celebrate those behaviors. So, as much as possible, let her button herself. As much as possible, let her choose what she wants to wear. As much as possible, let her feed herself, even if it's later stages of dementia, right? Number three, enlist an authority figure, someone she respects and wants to please. Definitely. If you find that you yourself have become the impediment, like now there's an emotional reaction that is now associated with your face, then just the easy solution is, okay, I'm going to get rid of my face and have my brother go in there and try this.
mhm,
Because sometimes just shifting things up will help encourage cooperation. But you can also, if your brother's not there, or if your husband's not there, or the doctor's not there, you can get creative about, showing mom a picture and saying, so and so would be really happy if we could wear this since so and so gave you this for Christmas, stuff like
mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And then the fourth is pair with a positive activity, which is exactly what we were talking about. Either you're pairing it with a positive reaction to, you, or pairing it with another face, which then leads to a positive reaction. But the goal that you're trying to come up with is they feel positive, it was a success. That's what you want as the end goal. Pair the desired behavior with something positive. Pair the desired behavior with something positive. If you pair it with a negative, like you getting stressed out, the next time that behavior is desired, it's going to end badly because that pairing is so critical. That brain, as damaged as it is, will remember those pairings and will remember negative experiences more than you want. So you want to have them remember, imprint those positive experiences. You have anything to
Absolutely.
add? Because I'm sure you've gone through this too, Melissa.
Gone through it many times. I was just thinking of something that just was a good tip that I learned from Tipa Snow, a great dementia educator and occupational therapist. And she was kind of talking about a way to, it was a similar example. Someone had a lot of layers on, or they had a jacket that was kind of on a little wonky. And instead of going up to the person saying, oh my gosh, you put your jacket on wrong, or oh my gosh, it's 80 degrees outside, she kind of went up and she said, oh, I love this jacket. Who makes it? And it was kind of like, can
Mhm.
I see the tag? And trying to like look at the tag and, oh, let me see if I can see the tag, and kind of slowly helping it off the person. And it
Yes,
was the same action, getting the person to take off that piece of
right.
clothing, but the approach was a complete 180 from, what we would tend to do normally, in that situation, which is just like, come on, look, yeah,
Fight
it's
about
way
it.
too hot for this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
how
used
that can
to
come off.
I used to
Go
do
ahead.
that with my dad, but I would appeal to his chivalry. So I would say, "Oh, I'm so cold. Can I borrow your sweatshirt? One of your 30 that you have on right now." I'm
Yeah.
being, I'm joking. But he would take pity on me and he would give me his jacket. And it was a
Yeah.
great way to get those layers off because all I had to do was act very, very cold. And which then we say this every meeting we have, but I just want to reinforce this. I know it feels like lying. And it, when we do this, but truly the goal we're trying to accomplish is a positive association with the desired behavior. And the positive association that comes from saying, can I look at the tag? Can I try that on? Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Or in my case, oh, I'm freezing. Can I borrow it? Is you're making that person feel great
Yeah.
about the same behavior that you want accomplished, which is let's take off those layers. If you can do it in a positive way, you've accomplished the goal. Don't worry about whether it's logical or whether it would pass, the evidentiary standard for a courtroom. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, what matters is your loved one feels respected, that there's peace and harmony and joy, and you have enhanced that person's quality of life and made them feel so loved and so appreciated in that very, you know, brief want to accomplish. So it becomes about love rather than the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah, and I think in both examples we shared, it's evident that just knowing those person-centered details, those personal
Yeah.
details about someone, knowing your dad would be thrilled to help you,
Yeah.
to be chivalrous, to give you his jacket, knowing that my mom and most people, I think, just love a good compliment, love to look good and feel good in what they're wearing. And so I would just layer on the compliments. Oh my gosh, but you look so good in this top, we just got this
Yeah.
one. Can we try this one on? And
Yes.
just being kind of overly kind, and that
Yes.
always took it in a positive direction.
Mhm.
So, and it's hard,
Mhm.
in the when you do feel underlying, kind of rushing to get to where you're going. Hopefully, in the future you have the ability to schedule appointments so that you're not rushing. I think that's,
That's
just
right.
that advanced planning. But there are always going to be those times where something comes up and we have to do this. But I think overall, if you can more often than
Yes.
not plan out your day so that this person's going to be at their best when we have to do this hard thing, or go out or whatever it is. That advanced planning definitely helps.
That's a very good point. If we were to add something to item 3 under adjust the timing. So
Yeah.
appointments shouldn't be scheduled at 7 in the morning or 8 in the
Yeah.
morning because you just know you're going to hit this as an obstacle. So you can tell yourself, I'm going to allow for, what tends to happen or what could happen. And that way it's a pleasant experience for all. So if you scheduled the appointment at 11, you've got some time to go back and forth and be creative and peaceful and not feel rushed and frantic and angry yourself. So good point, Melissa. That's
Yeah,
exactly
absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. So this is just kind of a wrap up on this situation here, just going through this list, kind of questions to ask yourself, why they may be getting upset. We just talked about this one. Is there enough time? Do they feel rushed? I feel like that is such a huge one in so many situations. And
Yeah.
even if we're not rushing to get somewhere, I think a lot of times we're rushing to just get through the task because we think it'll be so much better when this bath is done, or when we're done
Hmm.
in the bathroom. And so we're just like, we think it's going to be beneficial for both of us if we just rush through it, and we think that our loved one will be happier on the other side of this thing. But this is their present reality, and so
Hmm.
it's just gonna, like you said, set this negative kind of emotion, emotional memory that they have going forward about anytime I go in this bathroom, I just feel bad. It's
Mm-hmm.
negative. I feel like someone's telling me what to do. So if we can make those experiences positive, and it might take a little bit longer in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, but it'll save us time, save us a battle, which
Yes.
is a situation we never want to be in. So,
Yes.
um,
And that leads me to something else when you say the battle. Um, there, um, one of the things that we want to point out is that there is a dangerous component, and we don't want to overlook that. Um, it- you as a caregiver becoming stressed by the loved one becoming more distressed can lead to aggression,
yeah,
pushing, um, yelling. But the physicality is something that we want to protect you from and keep you safe from. So when you find that your loved one is reacting, it is very important that you take that cue and don't continue to push because, and I don't mean literally,
yeah,
although it could be, but figuratively too, that if you're pushing psychologically or getting more insistent or we're in a rush and we're going to be late, your loved one might strike out physically without even knowing what they're doing. And it could really hurt you. So the important thing is if you detect that your loved one is getting more agitated, take a break, walk out of the room. You don't have to say what the daughter said, oh, that's enough. I don't want to do this anymore. But you can just take a break, take some breaths, some deep breaths, wait, 5 minutes, come back, see if the temperature's changed. I used to call it my dad's, he's getting that face, he would
yeah.
get kind of an agitated face. And I would just look at him and, okay, has he switched gears yet?
Hmm.
Nope. Okay, then I'm not going to try to push this issue because um, if my dad struck out, he wouldn't even know what he was doing.
Yeah,
It was not intentional. And for us to then get in a physical battle would not, I'm going to lose.
yeah,
So it's just by virtue of size, and because we're dealing with a very fearful person, we're dealing with somebody who's feeling attacked or feeling overwhelmed. So safety first. The doctor appointment can wait. Okay, nothing is worth getting hurt over. So always remember if your loved one is getting more and more agitated, give it a break, give some distance, give some time. Because honestly, if you wait till the gears change and you can see that the expression on their face is shifted, you may be more successful in trying to accomplish what we were trying to accomplish, before. Um, it, and you come in saying the very same thing, like Melissa was saying about the tags. If you find that your loved one is saying, no, I don't want to, okay, go, leave the room, take some breaths, come back, try it again. Nope, okay, they're not ready. Go out, come back. So, you know, that's really important that we insert in there because we don't want anybody getting hurt.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think we've touched on most of these. We talked about, language. We didn't exactly mention something that we talk about a lot, which is, more than 90% of our communication in general with anyone is
Yeah.
nonverbal. Our
Mhm.
body language, our tone, and so really, checking in with ourselves and making sure that we're projecting what we want to be projecting. When we get stressed, it's really hard to control that. It's really hard
Yes.
to speak calmly. We just, our
Mhm.
blood pressure, our heart rate goes up. We just become, it's
Mhm.
this kind of stress response, and it's difficult to think clearly. And so, we always talk about kind of taking a step back, take a deep breath, think about your language. And I love how you talk about watching for the changing gears, because that forces us to be really observant, and kind of check in with that person, instead of just kind of going about the task and not really focusing
Mhm.
on how they're responding, which can lead to further escalation of that situation.
Mhm.
Giving them a sense of control, so important, and we talked about that with giving them as much of the task as they feel that as we feel they can kind of do, and giving them choices, and
Mhm.
really trying not to frame things as you need to do this or it's time to do
Mhm.
this, but can you help me with this?
Mhm.
Can how about we do this now? just like you would talk to a friend or, someone that you wouldn't be telling them what to do.
That's right.
And of course, things like checking the environment. Is the closet simplified, or,
Yeah.
whatever other
Yeah.
environment that you're in, is it going to be another distraction? Because we know that
Yeah.
as dementia progresses, they're not going to be able to tune out distractions the same way that we do.
That's
And things
right.
that we might not even think about as being a distraction might be the only thing that they can think about. The
That's
running
right.
water, the noise bouncing off
Hmm.
the, bathroom walls, bright lights, that
Hmm.
might be all they're kind of sensing at the moment. They can't even think about what we're saying because they're just so hyper focused on these other things. So there's a lot to think about, but that means there's a lot
That
that we
is
can do.
that is a really great point. Sometimes people feel like, oh, music is so comforting to somebody with dementia. And sometimes what you find, and I even find this in assisted living facilities, there is music, but then there's more music, and it's
Yeah.
different music. And then, the nurses have a radio on and is playing more music. And then somebody's got their phone and is playing different music. And then people are talking, and too many people are talking, and they're talking loudly. That's hard. Remember how we talked about the brain and that area of the brain that's responsible for interpreting incoming sensory information? If you have damage in that area of the brain, all of that auditory stimuli is coming in full blast, and your brain is not able to sift out what's a priority and what's not. It's not able to discriminate among all of that. So it all comes in full blast. It's confusing, it's overwhelming. And something as simple as you mentioned about the environment, keeping the environment uncluttered, that could be contributing to the agitation. That could be contributing to the violence. So the key for us caregivers is experience the environment as if your brain was in the same place as theirs. Just listen to what's going on around you as if your brain had trouble filtering out important stimuli. Look at the environment through their eyes. Um, Touch the environment and feel the environment through their senses, their tactile senses. Smell the environment as if your brain was going through the same thing as theirs. So it's a very empathic response that you have to take on to understand the world through their eyes, not yours. Because to you, you might say, well, I kind of like it when everything's all chattery and loud, and yeah, but your brain is working. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of simplify the environment, as Melissa said.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good tie-in with this analogy that I love, which is a tea kettle analogy. And I think sometimes we think, why do this happened out of nowhere? She yelled at me. I wasn't doing
Mm.
anything. She pushed me away. It just happened out of nowhere. And I think
Hmm.
that, once we start to think about all these distractions, all these layers, all these things that can happen over the course of a day that kind of slowly apply this heat,
Yes.
and then it could be one little thing that kind of tips it over the edge and sets the tea
Hmm.
kettle off, and we hadn't really been aware of all the other little things, all the other choices that got taken away throughout the day,
Hmm.
all the times, they felt kind of lonely or scared or fearful.
Hmm.
Um, and those kind of little added up. And then it was just one little thing that you said or one little thing that they, you know, encountered that kind of set them off. And so, rather than seeing it as, these behaviors are happening out of nowhere, they don't have a reason, it's just the
Hmm.
dementia. Um, think about, all the things that can happen over the course of a day, and then trying to see what we can do about those, seeing if we can be
Hmm.
proactive about some of those needs. How can we give them more choice and control throughout their day? How can we make them feel connected to something and
Hmm.
secure and safe and not fearful? And the
Hmm.
more that we can kind of fill those cups that they have of those
Hmm.
needs, I think the less we're going to see the explosions. We're still going to have
That's
some
right.
moments that are, where they're distressed, they're uncomfortable. It's really, I would say, probably impossible to get rid of them, 100%. But I think the more in tune we can be with, how they're feeling, and if those needs are being met, then, the goal is just having less distress.
That's
And
right.
when distress does occur, being able to kind of recognize it early on,
Hmm.
and instead of it getting to this tipping point. So I kind of like this
Yeah.
analogy from Tipa Snow here, talking about kind of the stages we go through of seeing some of these expressions. We might go from someone who's just slightly irritated and we might think they'll get over it, or we might not even pick up on it because we're kind of busy and doing other things. And then, it can kind of escalate into these other phases of, okay, well, now they're angry with me. And now, what do I do at this point? And if I do nothing, or if I continue to escalate, or if I kind of feed into it, if I get stressed out and I don't respond, maybe, calmly, then we're at this kind of crisis situation. And so our goal would be to stay, even out of the green, maybe to a positive state, even before that, but our goal here, once we do kind of see these, distress behaviors occurring, is how do we kind of keep it from going into the red? And that's
right.
just kind of everything we talked about today, meeting those needs and trying to validate what they're feeling is a big one. Do you want to talk a little bit about how we can kind of try to stay out of this red zone?
Yeah, I think that again, that we've got some good words here: irritated, angry, and furious. And I also want to do kind of subtitles there.
Yeah.
Under irritated, I want you to think of agitated, like physically agitated, meaning stressed. The person is under stress, and you can feel it. If your loved one is feeling stress, you can feel it too. In fact, your stress may be that there is a concept called mirror neurons, that your brain actually will pick up on what they're feeling. And so your body may be picking up on their stress or mirroring it. So pay attention to that. When your body is feeling stressed, it might be actually that it's picking up on theirs. And at that point is a beautiful place to intervene, because if you wait until it's at the other end, which it could look like fury, and then underneath that could be terror, it depends on how we're looking at it. But if you intervene at the green, you're less likely to incur physical injury. You're less likely to spend a lot of time reversing what's going on. You're less likely to have a horrible experience yourself. And like we talked about with that imprinting, you're less likely to have this behavior repeated in the future because you intervened at that green, and it became a positive experience. So I'm going to give you an example. Those of you who are watching who are in our family at Alzheimer's Orange County, and by family, I mean those of you who participate in these meetings, and you know us and we know you. You may have had an experience of being in a hospital setting or an emergency room setting with your loved one. And this is pretty typical, that the environment itself can cause distress and could cause agitation, which then builds into physical fighting. And then you see a bunch of people running in and trying to hold this person, right? So at the point that you're in that hospital room, you can pick up that person's sense of fear and stress if you're listening to your own body's response, right? Take a look around you. You've got bright lights, you've got incessant beeping of the machinery in the emergency room. You've got people rushing in and out, asking questions with hurried voices, poking, doing the blood pressure cuff without asking. There's a lot of rushing. You can almost guarantee you're going to push that person who is trying to make sense of their environment into the yellow, which will quickly get into the red. And it might be as simple as, let's turn off one incoming stimuli. Let's dim the lights a little bit. Before COVID, let's pull the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have a curtain, so you might have to do the door, but something that kind of minimizes the amount of stimuli coming in. And then let your medical professional and the nursing staff know that they're dealing with somebody who does have a diagnosis of dementia and is having a hard time with the incoming stimuli. And if they need to ask once again, what's going on here, that maybe they could talk to you in private to calm down what's, incoming. And I'm going to add one more thing as an intervention, because I've done this so many times with not only family member, but, with people that I've worked with. The most beneficial way to intervene at the green is to reassure that person that they're safe and they're with you and you will be taking care of them. That's pretty much the most healing thing you could tell them. And as a loved one, what I would do is give my dad a hug and say, I'm here with you, you're safe, don't be afraid. And it would dissipate that stress. But again, you do it at green. Yeah, if you do it at red,
Yeah, it
you
might
run
not
the
be the
risk.
exact right time. We may need to do
Do it at
something else.
green. Do it
Yeah.
at green. Yeah, I don't want to encourage people to go in for a hug when the person is
Yeah,
severely
that's
agitated,
true.
unless you're just bold.
Right.
But yeah, just remember there's a lot of fear there. So
I think that what you said perfectly summed up kind of what we mean by validating as a first step, kind
yes,
of always. And not saying this to the person, it's your right to feel, but saying this with our action, saying,
yes,
I see you, I hear you, I'm not judging how you're feeling. I know this is hard. It's hard for
yes,
me too. But we're together. I'm with you. You're safe.
yes.
I respect your right to be angry. I respect your right to feel this way. Before we go on and try to fix the problem, because I think sometimes we try to just brush off and hope that it just goes away,
Mhm.
by just kind of moving on quickly. But I think if we skip this step of really having them be seen and heard, then they're not going to feel seen and heard, and then they might try
Yeah,
something else to feel seen and heard because
yeah,
clearly you're not paying attention.
that's right.
So if we can do this, and like you said, a lot of what we see does come out of fear, and so
Hmm.
a good guess can be that they feel fearful or lonely or disconnected somehow, and so just offering that connection, offering yourself as just being present, I think is key.
Hmm.
So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and another way to validate, as you mentioned, to convey the right to feel the way you do is just to say it.
Yeah,
That this is very hard. This is uh, this is making you upset, and it's okay. And one of the most powerful ways to disarm that agitation that's increasing, or the physiological agitation, is to say, "I'm sorry. I'm very
keyword.
sorry."
Yeah,
Boy, I say that a lot, and it doesn't matter if it's not your fault. It's that you're pulling away what's mounting on their shoulders. You're taking some of that off by saying, "I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me?" And who doesn't like that? It
yeah,
just takes the weight off of one's shoulders, and you get to kind of reboot and and um, and start on a fresh note. So all of that validates that whatever that person is feeling is legitimate, and you're taking it seriously, and you're not dismissing it or minimizing it. You're connecting, and you're conveying supportive communication. You're letting them know, I'm with you on this. Hugging my dad and saying, I'm here, you're safe. That's connective. That's supportive. Saying, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? That's connective. I'm with you. So it's moving toward that person instead of being dismissive and moving as far away from that person as possible. And they feel it. They feel
yeah,
it.
absolutely. And we kind of talk about this as a little bit of a roadmap, validating, connecting, and using your good communication skills, which is a whole other topic. We've touched on
Yeah.
parts today, like just remaining calm and everything, but next week we have a communication workshop for caregivers. It's going to be held over Zoom. I'm actually going to put the link to sign up for that in the comments and hope that we see some of you there. It's going to be led by Ben Allen, one of our programs and education specialists, our educator. He's wonderful. So we hope that you would join and be able to share a little bit about your experiences and learn from other caregivers there as well, what's worked for them. So validating their experience, connecting, using positive communication, and then trying to move out of that negative state into a more positive state. And there's many ways to do this as well, but knowing what your loved one likes, what gets them happy. Maybe it's just breath of fresh air outside, going for a little walk. Maybe it's a cup of tea the way they like it. Maybe it's just sitting next to you. It doesn't have to be
Mhm.
anything fancy, but just having a little list of those quick things that you can just go to, that really kind of get them, in a positive place, can be really, really helpful as well,
Yeah.
especially for those tough situations where you want to kind of turn it around.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so I love ending with this, especially with you, Dr. Glinda, because I think you do a good job of explaining, what taking a deep breath does for our bodies, literally tricks our
Mhm.
bodies into not thinking we're in a
Yeah,
stressful situation anymore.
that's
So
right.
let's kind of end on this, and maybe you can just kind of talk
Sure.
us through this a little bit.
Sure, sure. So, taking a deep breath can't be underestimated. It's a very protective um, mechanism, and it's something we don't do well as human beings, especially as caregivers who are in a rush ourselves. But remember when I was talking about, if your loved one has that game face, the face, and you're waiting for that person to shift gears, you can leave the room. And when you leave the room, take that deep breath. And what the deep breath does is it actually switches your body out of a stress response into a relaxation response. And it's a very legitimate um, physiological change. This is not something where you feel better. You are actually doing your body a favor because your body um, is automatically going into these stress responses. So we have other presentations where we talk you through what is all involved in that and why it works. But just for the sake of time, I'm just going to just give you a little prescription for deep breathing, and that is that you first let all your breath out because you can't take a deep breath if your lungs are full. So blow it all out, and then exhale or inhale slowly on the count of 4. Hold it for the count of 4, and then exhale through your mouth through the count of 4 slowly. And you do that 3 times a day. That will do magic for your health, not just your mental health, but also your physical health. It's protective for the cells in your body. It's protective for your cardiovascular system. It minimizes the wear and tear on your body that caregiving can potentially have. And we don't want you to go through that. It also, psychologically, it opens up your brain to being even more creative and thinking outside the box. It's magic that way. And we
Yeah.
need all the creativity we can when it comes to dealing with somebody who's really trying the best they can with what they've got. So try those deep breaths. You'll amaze yourself. You'll keep your body healthy. You'll keep your mind healthy. And you'll be able to go back in 5 minutes later and try again.
Yeah, I think it's every time I do this and I'm feeling stressed out or something, like I realize how I'm not breathing. Like I'm just
Yeah.
kind of holding my breath or, breathing really shallow. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so
Yeah.
much more space in there for air that I should be using. But it's a really powerful thing, and it's something that we
Yeah.
don't take advantage of, I think. So, if you really want to give this a shot, I'd say set a reminder in your phone or
Yeah.
pair it with 2, 3 times a
Breathe.
day, like eating or something, whatever it is that works. Give it a shot because it
Yeah.
it really can kind of transform the moment there,
Mhm.
to be a little more calming.
Yes, it
So,
can.
yeah, I mentioned our communication workshop coming up. We have also what we call our Savvy Caregiver Express series that we do every month. So please check our website for dates for that. They're on Wednesdays, typically starting the second Wednesday every month. And this is an incredible class series for care partners to meet other care partners in similar situations. And it's kind of part, support and part education. And it's really an invaluable class. So we'd
Mhm.
really recommend you check that out. And we also have, excitingly, a little mini conference workshop coming up next month. And Dr. Linda is
Mhm.
going to be there as
Yay.
well. Yeah,
Yes.
so it's going to be February 25th, and I'll put the link to sign up in the comments here as well.
Mhm.
We're going to have a few speakers, and it's just going to be a great time to be together and kind of hopefully pick up on some new tips and just feel a little bit refreshed. And so we really hope that you join us for that. So click on that link for some more information there. We have tons of other classes as well, but I just wanted to kind of highlight these. So do check our website for other classes coming up.
Mhm.
I want to briefly thank and recognize one of our community partners, Family Caregiver Resource Center. They provide services and support for caregivers. They have lots of information just like we do. They have caregiver assessments and planning, counseling, education, support groups, and respite help. and they have services in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And if you'd like to learn more about them, you can visit their website, caregiveroc.org, and we're glad to be a community partner with them. And our usual resources here, our helpline, I think, is our best resource. I honestly do, because you can just get that one-on-one time with somebody that kind of understands, what you might be going through. If you need, if you have a specific question or need a resource, or if you just want to talk through a challenging situation that you're having, that's going on. And these, this is really, really helpful just to have someone on the other side that gets it and can kind of point you to some potential solutions and brainstorm with you. And so please do call our helpline. If you end up having to leave a voicemail, you'll get a call back. So please do leave a clear voicemail with your name and number. As always, we're thrilled to be with you here on Facebook, and please do visit our website for more classes. And all these classes that we're doing now online are recorded. Many of them are on our website, but all of them are on our YouTube page. If you just go to YouTube and type in Alzheimer's Orange County. And I want to just give a final shout out to Right at Home for sponsoring this class. We're so thankful for your support and the work that you do in the community. So thank you, Dr. G. Any final words that you'd like to say? Or?
Yes. In addition to being so thankful to Right at Home, we're also thankful to all of you who might be tuning in later to watch this archived video. And we want to invite you, if you have any questions or you'd like a specific behavior addressed in our upcoming series of Facebook Live presentations, we'd love to hear about it, because if you're struggling with it, you can count on, there are other people who are struggling with the same issue. We'd love to hear from you, because we might be able to put something together that addresses that very behavior.
Yeah.
And Melissa, how do you think, what would be the best way to communicate that wish if you're somebody in the community that's visiting the site and wants to see a particular behavior addressed?
Absolutely. You can comment here in this thread and we'll see it, or you can email. I put in the very first comment, there's an email address that's learn@alzoc.org, and I see those emails. If you ever want a copy of the slides that we've done, or you have a question about a presentation, or you have suggestions for future presentations, that's a great place to email, and please share that with us. And we'd love to talk about things that you're going through as care partners.
Excellent. So I'm just going to repeat that. So it's learn, LEARN, at alzoc.org. And if you have any wishes for future presentations, we'd love to hear them. And again, if you're struggling with it, believe me, there are people who are struggling alongside of you. Absolutely. And people who've struggled with it in the past. That's the benefit of this organization. We're a family, and what we've learned, we can pass along, and what somebody else has learned, they can pass along. So you're not alone in this process. You're not alone on this journey. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Julie, for those comments. We love seeing you guys on here, and everyone else joining us today. Thank you so much for spending your most precious resource, your time, with us. We really, really value that. So, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye. Have a good day.